Good evening everyone and welcome back to another play analysis. Now this one is all around Optic Chicago. At the weekend they had one of the biggest games in recent memory with Optic Chicago versus Atlanta Faze. Both teams had started the season really well, with Optic Chicago winning 3-0 against Paris and Atlanta Faze winning 3-0 against the LA Gorillas. Just to put into context here the size of the match, both of these teams are seen as the favourites. So this is very much seen as a match that will decide the top spot and therefore the best seeding from their group. Also, for both fan bases, this is extremely important. FaZe and Optic have scrapped for years to be the best team, the best org and franchise, etc. in Call of Duty. In very recent memory, Atlanta Faze are doing better than the Chicago Optic, but Chicago Optic have been a dynasty over the years and are looking to reclaim that title. In many ways, this series truly lived up to the hype. In the respawns in particular, they were both extremely close, with Atlanta Faze actually having to pull off a massive comeback in the Moscow Hardpoint map 4 in order to take it to a map 5. They were just massive duels back and forward, star players making star plays. I mean, cast back to the comeback that FaZe had to make, and Abezy making that play over in Moscow Bank was just absolutely fantastic to watch. Lots of hype. But the one thing that truly let us down a little bit was the search and destroys. Now obviously if you're an Atlanta Faze fan, you didn't really mind this, but if you're a Chicago Optic fan, there was a lot of questions to be asked. Across 2 search and destroys, 13 rounds, Optic only took home 1. Some of the statistics that really jumped out at us, First Bloods in particular, that Optic only took home 4 across the 13 rounds, meaning FaZe took the other 9. One of the other things that we wanted to highlight was the difference in the amount of trades. Now, an example of what a trade is say that I manage to kill an opponent, then that opponent's teammate kills me within quick succession. It's a traded kill, and in Search and Destroy in particular, this is what you want to make sure you're doing. You're always in the position to trade out your teammate because lives are so valuable, especially if you're not getting the first bloods. You really do want to counter that by trading out the person who got the first blood for the enemy team. In this scenario, Abezy, for example, is getting all the first bloods for FaZe, and Optic were not trading that out. When we actually counted up the amount of trades, so the kills within 5 seconds of a teammate or opponent being killed, then we saw a staggering difference. Optic took 6 trades across 13 rounds. FaZe, on the other hand, took 14 trades. A considerable difference, and shows just how much Atlanta Faze was set up to be teamwork based and set up correctly in order to make sure that they made their lives matter, and Optic were not. In fact, the round that Optic won kind of highlights how important these things are, when it was one of the few rounds where they got a first blood as well as saw a couple of trades. What we wanted to do is not only talk about statistics but break down 2 different rounds that show how Optic managed to make these mistakes and let these positions get away from them. The first play that we are going to break down is Optic's first defensive round on Moscow, because this is a prime example of how Optic would set up poorly and not be able to counter FaZe's play. To be fair to FaZe, they fake pressure at A, which is the typical preferred bomb site, and send only Simp there, and then send the rest of the team through to B. Optic, on the other hand, for their parts, are very aggressive on A, with Envoy pushed up in SDs and then Dashy and Scump on the outer side of lobby, completely dominating the A site and not allowing anything to come through the front. The problem with their setup is that Formal is set up in checkers on his own to watch the B cross. This idea here of a lone island player is someone who is looking to either get a quick pick on the flank or simply play for information. I think Formal himself will be disappointed watching this back, because what happens here is he gets over aggressive, takes on the gunfight instead of calling out the information and just playing his life, and instead gets picked by the 2 on the flank. Because of Formal's positioning and the fact that none of his teammates are in a position to trade him out, this then leaves FaZe with the entirety of the B site open, as well as no trade coming back in. This automatically has put FaZe up in amount of players available, as well as having complete control of the site. This forces Scump and Dashy to rotate back through their spawn in order to get to the site, and then it's followed by another mistake from Envoy, who comes down SDs and tries to pick off Simp, who's on the flank. Now I understand what he's trying to do here. He's trying to take out Simp, therefore he can wrap around the back, and they have a pinch that allows them to collapse on the bomb site from all different angles. But for me, again, he's just too aggressive in a position where he can't hope to be traded, and I do feel that he probably would would have been better off here joining his teammates on wrapping back through the spawn and trying to all hit the bomb site at the same time. From here then, FaZe are basically in a 4v2 with the bomb down, and as you can imagine, that round only goes one way, with there only being one kill out of Chicago onto Atlanta. Moving on to the second play then, and it is the next defensive round for Optic, and the one thing that I want to point out here is just how nervous Optic look. I mean, I haven't watched a lot of their SNDs over time, I haven't properly analysed here, but it looks very much to me like they have set plays that they break into and go with from the start, but then from there they're relatively unsure of things. This might just be a thing that they have with Atlanta because they respect their SND prowess, but it truly looked like they were very easy to move around. They basically set up the same as before, but Formal plays more passive and sits on the balcony ledge heady that looks over checkers. This would give him more protection if he was to be hit from that same flank, so it is an okay adjustment. The problem here comes instead from the fact that FaZe simply delay their push and take their time and wait. And even though Formal hasn't seen anything crossed, even though Formal at no point has called out that he's seen an opponent push through there, the entire Optic team rotate and put plenty of pressure onto the B bomb. Biding their time and waiting for this movement that they knew they would get out of Optic, FaZe then basically have a free bomb plan at A, the much harder to retake site, and then forcing Optic into a horrible bottleneck that, as you can imagine, again only goes one way, with FaZe coming out on top. These were just two examples of the types of plays that Optic were making that were just not great. I could pull up several more where Formal gets picked as the lone man, or there's no trade out, or they are set up in a way that leaves them looking like they've got holes and makes them nervous. There's never a point where you felt like Optic were going to be in control of the search and destroy. This highlighted a big hole in Optic's play. Their respawn looks fantastic, and I would argue that they're possibly the best respawn team in the game right now. But SND makes champions. It wins championships, as the old saying goes, and this was a prime example of how a series can get away from you, how you cannot just rely on being a great respawn team. And even coming into this weekend, Optic have to play Los Angeles Guerrillas and Toronto Ultra. Now on paper, those are both wins. However, both of those teams are well-disciplined, well-experienced, fundamentally strong teams that I expect to be good at search and destroy. So if those maps at all go to a game 5, looking at Optic's current search and destroy ability, I wouldn't put all my money on Optic just yet. I do expect them to see those games out in respawns, but again, respawns can sometimes completely flip on their head. You can get massive comebacks like they did against Atlanta. So we wanted to show here just how much of a hole there is for this team to fix, and that they need to go about fixing it. Don't get me wrong, I do fully expect them to. They've got a lot of quality and experience in this team, as well as a great coaching staff behind them and lots of support. So I fully expect them to come out and smoke both teams, but they do need to be careful and make sure that they fix their weaknesses. Anyway guys, that is everything for this play analysis. I do hope you enjoyed it. We tried something a little different. We hadn't broken down an S&D before. If you did enjoy it, please do leave a thumbs up. I'm looking to break that 20 marker. We've broken through it a couple of times, but I'd love to do it again. And if you are enjoying the content, do leave a subscription below. There's going to be lots of it over the coming season. We've got some really big things in store, and we intend to bring out plenty of these play analysis as well as other things throughout the season. We know that you guys enjoy them. We love the positive feedback. Please do keep it coming. Enjoy your Call of Duty, guys. All the best.